This year has been hopeful.
Unpredictable.
Unpredictably good and then unpredictably challenging.
Heartbreaking.
Woman in scrubs, white coat.
Tempering.
Pretty unfamiliar.
I would say virtual.
2021 was a year of resiliency.
Transformative. I'm a different person than I was last year, for sure.
I never thought that I would experience loss, as well as experiencing the level of anxiety that I experienced just dealing with the visibility of social justice issues.
We were witness to the events of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and other cases of individuals being targeted and killed because of their race.
We got COVID. Everybody, me and my wife, my daughters, my parents. It wasn't an issue. It was, all I received was support, and I'm very grateful for that.
I think I realized really important things like friends and family, being able to hug someone or see people without feeling fearful.
Everything going on with the COVID pandemic really made me feel I could lose anything at any moment.
We've felt significant isolation from each other, but we've also had this great opportunity that the pandemic has given us to connect on a digital plane.
Coming into a work-from-home environment virtually, it's something new, it's different, but I've really challenged myself professionally to wake up every morning, whether it's in pajamas or, a nice blazer over a top from, the waist up.
I learned that there's hope amongst all of us that are showing up every day.
I became more intentional in the work that we were doing.
The pandemic has changed a lot of what we do and made us realize that we're actually more nimble as an institution than we might previously have thought.
Being able to kind of shift quickly and be flexible, and actually seeing kind of the bravery of our students and their call to action and their involvement, and that really sparked an interest in me in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
I feel that UCSF has really stepped up to support its community members. It's created a greater sense of purpose for me in wanting to ensure that I am a part of those important conversations.
Now what's changed for me is the relationships I have with the people I work with.
I just feel really proud to be part of this institution, proud of how we approached the pandemic, proud of how we came together to tackle some hard realities.
I'll never forget the moment when I held in my hand syringes that had the vaccine to the global pandemic and was a part of facilitating those syringes going from School of Pharmacy folks to a nurse and to a patient. I've never felt so close to our mission of advancing health worldwide.
There's no challenge too big for UCSF to take on.
UCSF to me is home.
Being here now and seeing and being able to be a part of whatever the next chapter of UCSF is exciting.
It's always been my purpose to bring dignity to every patient that I see as a nurse. It's continuing to show up for the community. That's what makes me proud.
Title: UCSF 2021 State of the University Address. Catalyst. Chancellor Sam Hawgood stands in a modern building.
Welcome, everyone. It's my pleasure to share with you my State of the University Address for 2021. We are a year and a half into this global pandemic, and I could not be prouder to serve as your Chancellor. This annual address is my opportunity to highlight and celebrate what the UCSF community has achieved during the past year, and to think ahead about the opportunities before us. Despite the extraordinary pressures of the public health crisis, the churn of our national politics, and the challenges to social justice. Despite being tested by yet another surge, I am pleased to report that UCSF is emerging from the worst phase of the pandemic and growing stronger. As an institution, we continue to draw strength from the determination and contributions of each individual in our proudly diverse UCSF community. In a nod to your unflagging pursuit of our core mission, the title and theme of my address this year is Catalyst. Now, in chemistry, a catalyst is a substance that causes or accelerates a chemical reaction without itself being fundamentally altered. The pandemic has indeed been a catalyst for scientific discovery, for public health coordination at unprecedented scale, and for new models of working and learning. But it has not changed our mission across research, education, care delivery, and public service. As you saw in the opening video, the experience of the pandemic, personally and professionally, has clarified our purpose here at UCSF. It has put into sharper view our core mission, which remains unaltered, even if COVID-19 has changed what we work on in some cases and how we work in many situations. For some of our scientists, the pandemic temporarily paused their work as we curtailed on-site activities to limit exposure to the virus. But our research enterprise was not deterred for long, and it is once again flourishing. Recently, we celebrated the remarkable work of David Julius, who was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine, along with Adam Patapoutian, a scientist at Scripps Research and a former UCSF postdoctoral scholar. These two scientists are lauded for their independent discoveries of key mechanisms of how people sense heat, cold, and touch. A professor and chair of the Department of Physiology, David is UCSF's 6th Nobel laureate and our 2nd laureate to also hold the Morris Hertzstein Chair in Molecular Biology and Medicine, which was established in 1933 to support innovative work. David's achievement reflects the excellence of basic science research, not only at UCSF, but also across the broader University of California community, since David is an alumnus of UC Berkeley and ADEM of UCLA. This work has offered new insights into the molecular basis of pain sensation and sets the groundwork for potential targets for new forms of painkillers. Upon winning the Nobel Prize, David compared science to real estate. It's all about location, 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 referring to UCSF as a fantastic place to pursue his work. Having had the privilege of being immersed in our collaborative culture at UCSF for nearly 4 decades, I couldn't agree more. UCSF is a magnetic place, one that attracts the brightest academics, care providers, and staff. So congratulations to David. He is an inspiration to everyone engaged in our mission to solve life's biologic mysteries. Now, during my State of the University address in October 2019, a few months before COVID-19 changed the world, I shared 4 goals to guide our ambitious work together. These goals have taken on added meaning as we work to emerge from this public health crisis stronger than ever in our service of our public mission.
A slide appears.
First, driving innovation. Second, forging partnerships. Third, bolstering financial resiliency. And fourth, empowering our people. As individuals and as an institution, we have been tested and stretched to our limits. But in the face of adversity, we also have unleashed our potential in unanticipated ways, breaking down barriers of bureaucracy, and creating new ways of working together. Let me share with you a few ways in which we have pursued our goals. First, innovation. You have collectively set the bar even higher, working at the forefront of scientific discovery and care delivery, constantly redefining what's possible in advancing health at home and abroad. In June, we launched a new initiative to propel the development of living therapeutics to treat the most intractable diseases. This effort builds on the pioneering work of Emeritus Professor Jeff Bluestone and others. This new frontier in treatment, also called cell therapy, selects, modifies, or engineers cells to treat and cure diseases for patients who have few, if any, viable treatment options. Now, the Living Cell Therapeutics Initiative brings together UCSF's vast scientific and clinical experts working in disparate programs into one initiative to accelerate research and quickly advance promising therapies to clinical trials. The first living therapeutics, known as CAR T cell therapies, have already proven to be life-saving for patients with certain blood cancers. Thanks to recent breakthroughs in cell engineering and gene editing, these techniques will now be applied to develop new therapies for many other diseases. I believe cell therapy will be a game changer for millions of people who will stand to benefit from these revolutionary treatments, giving them and their loved ones new reason for hope. Just one exciting development in this field is happening at UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital, Oakland, where researchers will be embarking on an innovative clinical trial that aims to cure sickle cell disease. Led by UCSF pediatrician and principal investigator Mark Walters, teams will conduct the first human trial to apply CRISPR gene editing technology on patients' own blood stem cells to correct the mutation that causes sickle cell disease. Now, sickle cell is a terrible disorder that afflicts millions worldwide with an outside impact on members of the Black community. The goal is to develop a cure that is not just safe and effective, but is accessible and affordable to those who need it most. This research trial, representing the largest grant in Benioff Children's Hospital Oakland's history, with a $16.8 million grant over 4 years, will enroll its first patient this fall. Let's take a moment to watch a video that shows how this innovation will have scientific, social, and individual impact.
A woman draws a portrait with words like opioid and stabbing.
I first realized I had sickle cell. I was 5 years old. I would never think that I would be this strong at 26 with a terminal disease. I'm not just speaking for myself, I'm speaking for other patients who have sickle cell that are just like me all over the world, that do live in pain every day. And finding a cure means finding a future and finding a path that we can walk on that's pain-free.
Title: Hope for a Cure. Treating sickle cell disease with CRISPR.
Sickle cell disease is a hereditary red blood cell disorder. It's present at birth and extends lifelong, but its hallmark is pain. And it's caused when the red blood cells that are misshapen and damaged block the flow of oxygen and fluids into the smallest blood vessels in the body. That causes pain. So a lot of the treatment goes into treating the pain, preventing the pain. How do we lessen these painful episodes and the progressive organ damage that leads to early death?
Sickle cell disease was identified in Western medicine over 100 years ago, and it has taken up until now, really, for people to have access to cure and even to disease-modifying therapies. The reason for that really lies in structural racism. There are disparities in funding, and that's really the crux of why we haven't gotten to a cure yet. We've had partnerships with the community and with people with sickle cell disease at Benioff Children's Hospital in Oakland for decades. But it's time now to really continue with the promise where we listen to the voices of people who are affected by the disease and we really attend to the quality of life.
I have been a part of UCSF since I was 2 months old, and I'm forever grateful for my nurses and doctors at Children's Hospital. The most challenging part for me in this disease is definitely the pain. Getting out of bed every day is definitely a struggle. Working a job for me has been the hardest thing because it literally feels like my bones are breaking. When I feel a pain crisis coming on, I try to get my pain before it gets me with my meds. When we tell you we are in pain, we are in pain. And we deserve to be treated with respect and dignity.
It's only recently in this awakening regarding diversity, equity, inclusion, and how that affects the practice of medicine that we've begun to get the resources we need to develop a new therapy.
CRISPR therapy is one of the most exciting innovations that is out there right now.
And it began with scientists at UC Berkeley and the Innovative Genomics Institute, that's led by Jennifer Doudna, and a gifted postdoc in the laboratory, Mark DeWitt, who finalized and optimized the reagents that you need to correct the sickle mutation. Our approach is targeted. We're actually going specifically to the location in the genome where the sickle mutation is located and correcting it, and then reinfuse a sufficient number of corrected stem cells to actually eliminate the disease in every person who's inherited it. With UCSF, UCLA, the UC Berkeley consortium, we have expertise in manufacturing, in gene editing, in cell biology, and hematology to be able to bring this safely to a clinical trial ready to enroll patients now. This is something that should have happened years ago, and I'm so pleased that here at UCSF and in the University of California system, we've embraced the challenge.
We have to really put resources towards people with sickle cell disease who have so long lacked adequate resources to just get the basic care. And a cure can really revolutionize and change everyone's life.
Persons who inherit sickle cell disease are now called sickle cell disease warriors. And they're warriors because they're resilient. They're not giving up, and so neither will we.
I would love to see a cure in sickle cell. I want to be like a normal young adult. I want to be responsible. I want to have my own money. I want to work a job. I want to be active and hang out with our friends and family. We want to live just like everybody else.
A woman smiles outdoors. The Chancellor continues his address.
Another transformational breakthrough is the work that UCSF neurosurgeon Eddie Chang and colleagues are doing as they strive to solve the most vexing problems affecting the human brain. In the first clinical trial of its kind, they successfully developed the technology that taps into the brain's natural speech machinery, enabling a man with severe paralysis to communicate in sentences. This technology translates signals from the brain to the vocal tract directly into words that appear as text on a screen. Building on more than a decade of work, this achievement, called speech neuroprosthesis, is the first successful demonstration of direct decoding of full words from the brain activity of someone who is paralyzed and cannot speak. Eddie and Andrew Crystal, the Ray and Dagmar Dolby Distinguished Professor of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences, are also working for a better way to treat depression, the most common category of psychiatric disorder, which affects as many as 264 million people worldwide. They have demonstrated a novel, personalized brain stimulation approach that, at least in their first patient, was able to provide relief from symptoms of severe depression within minutes. This approach is being developed specifically for people whose debilitating depression does not respond well to existing therapies and who are at particularly high risk of suicide. This research adds to the growing evidence that faulty brain networks that cause depression, just like epilepsy or Parkinson's disease, could be shifted into a healthier state by targeted brain stimulation. Our second priority is partnerships. In addition to the new and ongoing partnerships UCSF has been pursuing to drive innovation, I am deeply grateful for the collaborations you've engaged in across all of our mission areas in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. These collaborations extend UCSF's history of forging productive partnerships, both locally and globally, since our founding. UCSF's role in managing the pandemic has been part and parcel of the public health response led by local, state, and national leaders, from the 1906 earthquake through the HIV epidemic and now COVID-19. Our commitment to the communities in which we live and serve has been on display in our work with partners in the Bay Area to vaccinate as many people as possible to protect them from COVID-19. Teams worked weekends and around the clock to scale up operations, train and deploy the workforce as needed, coordinate with our health partners, and organize all of the logistics to operate clinics and mass vaccination sites. This was an extremely complex and taxing endeavor that resulted in one of the highest vaccination rates in the world. Unpredictable availability of the new vaccines, which were authorized for emergency use at different times, and the challenge of communicating widely and repeatedly about their safety and efficacy presented dynamic hurdles throughout the vaccine rollout. But UCSF's vaccine mobilization effort led to a truly remarkable feat. We have fully vaccinated approximately 110,000 people and given nearly 260,000 vaccine doses over the course of the last year. Importantly, our vaccination efforts included a focus on health disparities and other inequities in our society. Guided in part by the COVID Equity Work Group, UCSF teams conducted outreach efforts in Black and Latinx communities with the highest infection rates and limited access to care, including communities in the Mission, the Bayview, Excelsior, and the Tenderloin in San Francisco, and communities in Oakland and throughout Alameda County. So let's now hear from a few people working on the front lines in our communities in this vaccination effort.
Hi there, folks. Does anyone need the COVID vaccine? We got the vaccine available today for you.
In the very early days when we first started giving vaccines, sheer gratitude. We go down to the Tenderloin and we will vaccinate someone, and the gratitude you just almost can't describe.
When we started this work in the Tenderloin, it was one of the hardest hit areas in San Francisco. And through the UCSF effort, the Tenderloin has one of the highest vaccination rates in the city.
Bay Area vaccination combats COVID-19.
When vaccines came out, we were so excited. We could focus on prevention and getting vaccines to the community that was so disproportionately affected in a rapid way. I think one of the things that allowed us to act so quickly, especially in setting up this site, was the long-standing collaboration that we had made since the beginning of COVID with the Latino Task Force.
The Latino Task Force is a collaboration of over 30 Latino serving organizations that have deep roots in the community. We've also been here through every single hard moment that our community has had. So this collaboration coming in made it so much easier for people to trust the science and to trust the test first and now the vaccine.
The Unidos en Salud collaboration is a partnership between UCSF and the Latino Task Force. And there's something so powerful about having medical professionals, the scientists, working hand in hand with community. We do everything in this site together. Since April, we have tested over 50,000 people. We have done over 30,000 vaccines, and I don't think we could have done it without these partnerships.
So Kim and I have worked together previously in completing some of the COVID pandemic response work in a very short turnaround time. And so that was why we were both asked to participate in this initiative.
So UCSF partnered with SFDPH to build the only drive-through mass vaccination site for the city and county of San Francisco. And through this partnership, we were able to deliver over 114,000 doses.
I think from the outset, we absolutely sought to build a model that was adaptable.
We were, up against a lot of different obstacles, supply being the main thing. It was, you're closed tomorrow. No, you have 1,000 doses tomorrow. Now we're vaccinating kids. Now we're not vaccinating kids. I mean, it was a real roller coaster. And the reason why we all got through it and why we were so successful is because of those relationships. We had every level of government official that was actively involved in this site. And then we started to realize, we could bring City College to the community. And so that's how we started to partner with Dr. Malcolm John and the Black Health Initiative, with Dr. Margot Cushell and the Tenderloin, Dr. Kim Rhodes.
You only need a bridge if there is a gap. And what we've come to recognize is that the place where Umoja Health exists is in the gap between public health and healthcare. Back when the pandemic started, there was a really diminished access to testing for African American communities and Latinx communities. We realized that if we did a mass testing site, that we weren't going to reach all of the African American neighborhoods and communities that had high rates of COVID transmission. So we decided what we needed to do was go directly to the community, so we instead adapted a pop-up model for Alameda County. But if we didn't have the partners on the ground letting their networks know, then we wouldn't have had the kind of reach and impact that I think we've had. UCSF's role has really been as a foundational support for information, resources, and for vaccine. Part of our mission is sustaining what we call year-round, non-transactional community partnerships. And we're not going anywhere. And if we want to get to health equity, that's a relationship in perpetuity.
Here at UCSF, we have vaccinated more than 96% of our total population of 33,000 people, the highest vaccination rate in the 10-campus UC system. I am so proud of this accomplishment and want to personally thank everyone who has been part of this effort. I also want to acknowledge campus leaders in our overall response and recovery too. Some were honored by their work at the Founders Day Awards ceremony, but many more deserve credit, especially those working on the front lines and behind the scenes in delivering and supporting high-quality, compassionate care to our patients and our communities. Another shining example of unparalleled public health coordination and partnership has been through our program called the UCSF Pandemic Initiative for Equity and Action, based at the Institute for Global Health Sciences and led by epidemiologist George Rutherford. With support from the California Department of Public Health, UCSF and UCLA launched a virtual training program that trained more than 11,500 contact tracers, case investigators, outbreak managers, and school specialists across the state. Faculty and staff are now expanding these public health workforce development programs after receiving funding to extend them through 2023. UCSF is collaborating with several other institutions to profile and track emerging variants. Charles Chu, who directs the UCSF Abbott Viral Diagnostics and Discovery Center, along with members of the Chan Zuckerberg Biohub, is partnering with the Gladstone Institute, Color Genomics, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, and the California and San Francisco Departments of Public Health. Experts from all of these sectors are contributing to a better understanding of how variants interact with our own immune systems and the potential to spread and decrease the effectiveness of currently available vaccines. Initially, California lacked a tracking system like this, but improvements have since enabled emerging variants to be detected more quickly and at far larger scale throughout the state. This data can help us identify the emergence of highly transmissible variants like Delta as early as possible, to guide public health interventions that can then help prevent or minimize future surges in the COVID-19 pandemic. UCSF's partnership also extended into the San Francisco and Oakland Unified School Districts. The Collaborative to Advise on Reopening Education Safely, or the CARES program, formed in June 2020 when a group of UCSF pediatricians identified a need to have a unified voice as healthcare professionals and provide data and analysis to school administrators and teachers as they considered remote and in-person learning models. This group soon grew to more than 100 UCSF-affiliated healthcare providers, volunteer clinical faculty, and alumni in the schools who volunteered their time and expertise to create a wide-ranging webinar series, drafted guidance for schools, and counseled local, state, and federal policymakers. A major factor in UCSF's rise as a world-class health science enterprise is the continued partnership and support of our donors who share our sense of purpose. Their generosity has contributed funds for the construction of several new buildings that open this year. These buildings will transform the way we provide cutting-edge care in the fields of neuroscience, vision, and mental health. Today, I am delivering my State of the University address in the Joan and Sanford I. Weil Neurosciences Building, a stunning new facility made possible by the Weil Family Foundation and Joan and Sandy Weil. Here, our scientists, physicians, and learners are on a quest to develop new therapies for diseases affecting the brain and nervous system, including psychiatric disorders. Last November, we opened the new UCSF Wayne and Gladys Valley Center for Vision, which brings together physician scientists and clinicians across multiple disciplines whose work converges on vision and eye health. Its clinics provide routine vision care and specialty care for complex eye conditions, including cataracts, ocular cancer, and macular degeneration. The Valley Center for Vision also includes the Francis Proctor Foundation, which is dedicated to research and training in infectious and inflammatory ocular diseases and works to eradicate blindness worldwide. And thanks to the generous support of John Pritzker and Lisa Stone Pritzker, we are putting the final touches on the Nancy Friend Pritzker Psychiatry Building. This new facility will radically transform healthcare, training, and research at a time when the nation is confronting immense challenges and ongoing stigma associated with mental health. This state-of-the-art facility will be the new home for our Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences, led by Chair Matt State, a child psychiatrist and human geneticist. It will be one of the few centers in the country that brings together outpatient mental health care for patients of all ages, programs in psychiatry and psychology training, and clinical research on brain disorders. Now on to the third goal, financial resiliency. It is not enough for us to ensure UCSF's long-term financial health. In addition, it is our social responsibility as a public university for us to exercise our economic power to benefit members of our community as well. While the pandemic has created significant financial headwinds, UCSF's long-term financial footing is sound. As the second largest employer in the city and the 5th largest in the Bay Area, we have fared better than many other institutions in the face of the economic challenges created by the pandemic. Our financial standing is the result of careful planning, good decision-making, and most importantly, the work and in many cases the sacrifices of everyone who rallied in response over the past year. Here are just a few key points. First, patient care revenues have been significantly lower than planned, but we maintained growth year over year. And federal funds helped backfill some of our shortfall. Second, the research enterprise continues to be robust, with the number of awards from the National Institutes of Health and other sources increasing from last year. And third, as I mentioned before, our donors continue to support us with their generosity, a sign of their unwavering confidence in the work we do, exemplified by our heroic response to this public health crisis. Lastly, while we took a significant cut in our state funds during the financial year 21, those funds have been restored for 2022. I also want to acknowledge the financial hardship of members of our community during this past year and thank those who contributed to UCSF's Financial Relief Fund. Among those who faced significant challenges were our colleagues in Campus Life Services, as public health orders required us to shutter on-campus conferences, eateries, retail, and recreation. I extend my appreciation for all that they have endured and for those who volunteered to be redeployed to other jobs, such as staffing vaccination sites. I am happy to welcome them back as our fitness centers and eateries reopened during this year. Now, looking ahead, we must remain flexible as we manage a still unpredictable pandemic. We must remain cautious and continue to look for ways to optimize our operations and control expenses while continuing to make significant contributions to the city we call home. To keep pace with the growing care needs of San Francisco, our hospital team at Mount Zion revitalized the historic hospital, turning it into a new hub for orthopedic surgery. Their efforts will enable us to expand our orthopedic services in hip, knee, and shoulder replacements, as well as trauma surgeries, growing our care in these areas and opening new space for neurosurgery and other programs on Parnassus Heights. And with the region's approval of our plan to revitalize our Parnassus Heights campus, we are working with our neighbors, community leaders, elected officials to address local priorities and make enhancements. Furthermore, as part of our commitment as an anchor institution, an effort we launched 2 years ago, we are striving to support the financial resiliency of our Bay Area communities. Among other developments in the Anchor Institution Initiative, we are expanding Excel, our workforce development program, by developing pathways for advancement of frontline staff in roles such as medical assistants, clinical research coordinators, and health system IT. We are formalizing a partnership with the San Francisco Unified School District to advance equity and participation in educational pipeline programs, and we are setting a target of increasing our small, local, and diverse business spend by 50%, identifying opportunities and addressing barriers to doing business with UCSF. In thinking about our responsibility as financial stewards, we must also accept responsibility for being good stewards of the environment as we experience the devastating impacts of the worsening climate crisis. As you know, one of the consequences of climate change is extreme weather, which is exacerbating fatal heat waves, flooding, droughts, and annual wildfires in California and around the world. These impacts will worsen over time, creating climate-related inequitable impact on the most vulnerable communities, which have fewer resources and opportunities to adapt. UCSF, including UCSF Health, is embarking on a climate resilience planning effort as part of a University of California system-wide initiative to develop a first-of-its-kind framework for justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion-centered climate resilience across all UC campuses. And as a signatory of the Climate Leadership Network, we are incorporating environmental sustainability efforts into our daily operations across research, education, and healthcare. I am very grateful to all of those whose efforts contribute to significant savings in energy, water, and reduced waste, as well as a smaller carbon footprint for UCSF. And now on to our fourth and final goal, empowering our people. As I have said many times before, UCSF is one of the world's preeminent universities because of our people. From our frontline care providers and staff who continue to set the standard for compassionate public service and leadership, to the great diversity of brilliant minds whose collaborative and entrepreneurial spirit has fostered transformational advances in biomedicine. Our people have propelled us through every public health crisis since our founding and in every year in between. Given our pivotal role focusing exclusively on health and science, my leadership team and I believe it is an institutional imperative that all members of our community feel empowered, valued, respected, and engaged. Our success in the short and long term depends on our ability to foster a supportive and inclusive culture in which everyone can thrive. As we continue to face social injustices, the specter and uncertainty of this pandemic, and the loss of millions of lives around the world, I recognize the toll and trauma felt by members of our UCSF community. To support our community, we are increasing our efforts to promote wellness in all of its forms: emotional, physical, social, and spiritual, supporting efforts sprung from the good work of many. Early on in the pandemic, UCSF's Family Services developed resources for families caring for children and dependents. Certainly, those caring for children and elders have faced additional challenges and stress, especially our women faculty and staff. We understand these challenges and must do more. That's one reason we have adopted new flexible ways of working, offering a hybrid model of remote and on-site options for those whose jobs do not require them to be on the campus. The UCSF Employee Coping and Resiliency Program, for example, is the product of a partnership with the UCSF Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences, UCSF Human Resources, and the Center for Digital Health Innovation. These groups have come together like never before to sponsor webinars and to develop programs and resources which are accessible to everyone online. We recently established a wellbeing committee charged with supporting UCSF's workforce and learners by offering grants that aim to boost mental health and well-being through activities and initiatives. To better address issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion, we are conducting a climate survey of all faculty, staff, students, and trainees through November 30th of this year. This survey will build on the findings from this year's staff and engagement survey to get a pulse of the entire UCSF community, faculty, students, postdocs, and residents. I also want to acknowledge a grassroots effort by faculty and staff who launched a mental health resiliency campaign that seeks to shift from stigma towards a culture of openly discussing and seeking support for mental health wellness. I applaud members of our UCSF community for sharing their stories about living with or caring for family members and friends with mental health issues. To create a truly supportive environment, we must continue our work to root out systemic racism. When we adopted the UCSF Anti-Racism Initiative, led by Vice Chancellor Renee Navarro, we dedicated ourselves to dismantling structural racism in our systems and practices, discrimination and bias, and recommitting ourselves to living our principles of community and pride values. We are making progress. Over the past year, many individuals have stepped up their efforts in response to this initiative, some of whom will be recognized at the Chancellor's Diversity Awards on October the 28th. To name just a few others, School of Medicine students Laisha Cornejo and Jasmine Williams initiated a faculty development workshop to address racism and racial unrest, winning a UC Presidential Award for their efforts. Operations Manager Fonda Smith founded the Memory and Aging Center's Black Leadership Advisory Council in response to the killing of George Floyd and other social injustices. Tassie Bongiovanni, co-chair of the Native American Health Alliance, in partnership with the Association of Native American Medical Students and the Ramaytush Ohlone, the original people of the San Francisco Peninsula, developed a land acknowledgement statement for UCSF. And Joel Babdor, a postdoctoral researcher, started UCSF Immunodiverse Allyship Program to create a community of learners that work to dismantle systemic racism through continuous learning. He was awarded with the Chancellor's Award for Public Service for his leadership. Their important efforts are advancing our commitment to an inclusive climate reflective of our pride values. In the education arena, we've seen educators, students, and trainees alike emerge as supercharged change agents, responding to the evolving dynamics of the pandemic and continuing to improve the teaching and learning experience. A group of 7 School of Dentistry faculty members designed and implemented a new team-based clinical teaching model that has students learning how to work as part of the clinical team. Patients benefit from more coordinated care and get to build a long-term relationship with their provider. As we begin a new academic year, I am so grateful for the leadership of our education deans who are overseeing our efforts across the schools of dentistry, medicine, nursing, pharmacy, and the graduate division. Thanks to their direction, faculty and administrators were able to quickly and effectively pivot from in-person learning to online and hybrid forms of education as circumstances rapidly changed. The school's admission deans needed to redesign processes for virtual admission for hundreds of students and manage inconsistent availability of test scores. In another new initiative, Maria Hauchico, Director of the Students' Rights and Responsibilities in the Office of Student Life, has led 7 large community restorative justice circles in response to the national reckoning on race. These circles give students with varying values, experiences, and backgrounds an opportunity to engage in constructive dialogue, promoting a sense of security and belonging. As a result, we are now exploring ways to bolster and build on those efforts and to incorporate restorative justice practices into community building and problem solving across the campus and UCSF Health. It is my hope that this will foster healing and a spirit of camaraderie throughout the university. So as we enter the final months of 2021, I want to recognize the work of a few UCSF leaders and thank them for their incredible and lasting impact at UCSF and beyond. Mark Larrett, President and CEO of UCSF Health, is retiring at the end of this year, culminating his 21-year legacy of UCSF leadership at the national, state, and local levels. Mark has been a champion of our academic enterprise, understanding the importance of the unfettered and rigorous pursuit of basic research, educating the next generation of leaders, and the importance of translational and clinical research that lead to pioneering treatments for our patients. He has been a strong voice here and across the UC system for extending our reach to the underserved in our state. Over the past 2 decades, Mark's leadership has led to the recovery of UCSF Medical Center, after a 3-year merger with Stanford. He has recruited a management team that put us on solid financial footing, and he ushered in Pride values and envisioned and executed the expansion to Mission Bay. During his tenure as CEO, UCSF's health workforce has more than tripled to now over 15,000 people, and revenues have grown from $600 million per year to more than $5 billion per year. Today, UCSF Health accounts for 60% of UCSF's overall budget. In so doing, Mark has earned the respect, admiration, and appreciation of many across our community, not only for what he has done for UCSF, but more importantly, how he has done it, with optimism, respect, integrity, humility, and humor. We have all benefited from his wisdom and guidance through these challenging times. And after more than 4 decades at UCSF, Dean Joe Guglielmo will also be retiring at the end of this year. He has led what is widely considered one of the top pharmacy schools in the nation for nearly a decade. Under Joe's leadership, the School of Pharmacy has had numerous achievements, including extending its streak as a leader in NIH research funding, launching the Quantitative Bioscience Institute, and completely revamping the school's curriculum. As Dean, Joe has promoted therapeutic research, forged relationships amongst clinical, basic, and translational scientists, and advocated for expanding the role of pharmacists in healthcare to reduce medication errors and improve patient care. Now, in closing, I want to return to the notion that the pandemic has been a catalyst for change. Indeed, it has changed the way we live our lives, the way we learn, and the way we work. At times, it has made us feel more isolated and vulnerable. But what binds us through this experience is that the pandemic has also sharpened the clarity of our purpose at UCSF. The experience of the past year and a half has united us in our response, not only to the public health crisis, but also in our responsibility to serve our communities at a time of their greatest need. And while COVID-19 may have spurred a number of changes, the people of UCSF and our immutable mission are the greater catalysts for transformation. Our collective accomplishments and the changes that they will create will prove more lasting than the legacy of this pandemic. So as we approach the end of this year, let us take stock of all that we have accomplished amid the turmoil and the challenges, and recommit ourselves to health and well-being, not just for our patients, but for our communities, families, and ourselves. Now, to end our program today, it is my great pleasure to introduce Charles Lim, the Francis Suey Professor of Otolaryngology, Head and Neck Surgery. With his love of music, Charles pursued the study of hearing, becoming the medical director of our cochlear implantation program. His research focuses on the study of neuroscience and music, a convergence of science and art, and of the power of music to heal. Charles graciously wrote an original piece for this occasion, which he has kindly agreed to perform. So here now is Charles performing the debut of Catalyst.
Charles Lim, MD, plays the saxophone in the atrium of the modern building.